Gangsters still find brides behind bars, and the psychology is darker than you think. Why do women obsess over killers? It's a dark obsession with danger. These women fall for crime lords, death row inmates, and mass murderers. One smuggled weapons for her man, but the last woman? Stick around. The final case will make your blood run cold. The hybristophilia phenomenon. Why do some women fall in love with killers? It sounds like a plot twist, but it's a real psychological phenomenon. Psychologists call it hybristophilia, the attraction to someone known to have committed violent crime. And yes, it happens more often than you think. As coined by sexologist Dr. John Money, hybristophilia is a condition where arousal is linked to violent partners, men convicted of murder, assault, or worse. It's the ultimate bad boy fantasy pushed to an extreme. Some women are drawing to these figures because they symbolize danger, darkness, and raw power, turning fear into fascination. But it's not always about thrill. For many, it's about empathy. Some women believe they can fix or nurture the man behind the crimes, blaming his past or trauma and convincing themselves there's a damaged soul worth saving. Others are pulled in by the adrenaline. A relationship with a jailed criminal offers a strange sense of control. The man is always available, writes letters, shows attention, but never shows up to argue, cheat, or leave. It becomes a perfect boyfriend fantasy with no real-world chores or responsibilities. Then there's the attention factor. Some openly admit it's about fame being tied to a notorious figure, which brings media headlines, intrigue, and even fan mail. Criminologist Catherine Ramsland puts it plainly. Some want to change the killer, others want to mother him, a few want the spotlight, and some just want a love story where they can't get hurt. It might sound like fiction, but it's real, and it's more common than we are comfortable admitting. That's the unsettling truth behind hybristophilia. When love and danger blur, fantasy can turn into obsession. The most notorious gangster couples. Love and crime, it's a deadly mix. And history has always made room for the dark romance of gangster couples. And sometimes it's the love story that's more disturbing than the crimes. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow weren't just criminals. They were America's most famous outlaw lovers. But their story wasn't unique. Decades later, killers like Ted Bundy, Richard Ramirez, and Jeffrey Dahmer all had women writing to them, loving them, even marrying them despite the horror of their crimes. Journalist Joel Cedarstrom recalls how Ramirez, the Night Stalker, was flooded with love letters from starstruck fans, one of whom became his wife. Ted Bundy, even while on trial for murder, had supporters calling him misunderstood. One even had his child. But it's not just serial killers. Drug kingpins and mobsters have their own kind of romance. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman married Emma Coronel, a former beauty queen who stood by him through trials and prison. Britain's infamous Cray twins ruled London with girlfriends and wives by their side, loyal until the law finally caught up. Even today, gang-affiliated rappers and drug traffickers often have women who stay close, despite the danger, the headlines, or the jail cells. The prison wives. They've never touched, never shared a home, yet they wear rings and call it love. Meet the prison wives, women who marry murderers, rapists, and gangsters serving life behind bars. Some women aren't just fascinated by criminals, they fall in love with them. These women write letters, send photos, and sometimes even exchange vows with inmates they've never met in person. The media calls them prison wives, and for many, the relationship is as real as any outside the walls. Serial killers like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and Richard Ramirez all had fan clubs behind bars. Bundy got married during his trial. Ramirez, the infamous Night Stalker, received daily love letters, and one admirer even became his wife. Dahmer's mail overflowed with letters from women who claimed to love him, despite knowing every gruesome detail of his crimes. The Museum of Death in New Orleans even displays some of those letters, raw, handwritten confessions of affection sent to a man who killed and dismembered his victims. So why do they do it? For some, it's the thrill of loving someone dangerous from a safe distance. For others, it's about control, a partner who can't leave, cheat, or disappoint. And if you admit they want attention, being linked to a notorious name gives them a spotlight they never otherwise have. It's a love story that never leaves the visiting room. In the shadows of steel bars and sealed envelopes, the line between obsession and devotion gets harder to draw. Which women are particularly vulnerable? Who exactly falls for these monsters? The answer isn't simple, but it's rooted in psychology, pain, and the hidden need to feel wanted, even by the most dangerous men alive. Studies show that women drawn to serial killers or violent criminals often share one thing: a history of trauma. Many grew up in abusive homes, experienced neglect, or developed PTSD from earlier relationships. These emotional wounds can distort what love looks like, making danger feel familiar, even comforting. Psychologists note that low self-esteem, attachment issues, and a desire to feel chosen can play major roles. Some women are drawn to dominance. Others seek purpose. They want to rescue, fix, or nurture someone who seems broken. These women believe they're the one person who can reach the man behind the monster. For them, it's less about thrill and more about meaning. If they can save him, maybe they can prove they're worth saving too. Some are lured by the fame. Criminals like Ted Bundy and Richard Ramirez had massive media attention, and women who latched onto them sometimes fantasized about sharing that spotlight. The relationship becomes a stage, and the killer becomes their headline. The role of the media. How gangsters are romanticized. So why do killers get fan mail? Because the media turns monsters into myths. Modern media blurs the line between villain and icon. Films, shows, and music often portray gangsters and killers as charismatic anti-heroes. Dangerous, yes, but also cool, clever, even sexy. When actors like Zac Efron and Evan Peters play real-life murderers like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer, the message can get twisted. As writer Jeslyn Chen argues, this glamorization turns horrific crimes into sleek drama, giving dangerous men the spotlight they never deserved. Documentaries, true crime shows, and even nightly news reports often focus on a killer's charm, wit, or troubled backstory, making it easier for viewers to develop sympathy, or worse, attraction. Social media takes it further. Instagram pages dedicated to imprisoned gangsters and serial killers pop up constantly, filled with fan art, love notes, and fantasies. In hip-hop and street culture, the gangster image, fast money, flashy style, and fearlessness is celebrated in songs and videos, often detaching the violence from reality. As one psychiatrist warns, media romanticizes criminals, and vulnerable people often fall for the image, not the truth. The frightening statistics. It's not just fiction. The obsession is real. Some convicted murderers receive thousands of letters. Florida killer Wade Wilson, convicted of 2 murders, reportedly received nearly 4,000 letters from admirers while awaiting sentencing. Jeffrey Dahmer's fan mail was so overwhelming that it's now on display at the Museum of Death. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, received a wave of attention from women across the country, and one of them actually married him. These letters range from poetic love notes to graphic fantasies. For many, the crime isn't a deal breaker. It's part of the appeal, and the media, knowingly or not, gives these criminals the stage they need to keep the obsession alive. This isn't about love, it's about illusion. The dynamics of control. Behind many thrill-seeker romances with criminals is a darker truth, not passion, but manipulation. Criminals, especially gangsters and serial killers, often rely on psychological control, not brute force, to keep their partners loyal. Forensic psychologist Eric Hickey points out that in most criminal duos, one partner is dominant, often targeting someone vulnerable, insecure, isolated, or emotionally unstable. This is never an accident. The predator chooses his follower carefully. Once contact is made, the manipulation begins. Offenders test boundaries early, tossing out shocking remarks, floating fantasies, gauging how far a woman is willing to go. If she doesn't resist, the door is open. Bit by bit, the line between love and control disappears. He makes her feel chosen, needed, special, and then demands complete loyalty in return. A chilling real-world case is Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka, the so-called Kim and Barbie killers. Bernardo charmed Karla at first, but soon pulled her into his crimes. She helped drug and murder her own sister. These relationships aren't just toxic, they're strategic. The abuser isolates the partner, blurs reality, and chips away at her defenses. What looks like loyalty is often fear, and what begins as romance can quickly become a prison you can't see until it's far too late to run. The survivor stories. Not every woman in love with the gangster ends up dead. Some escape, but it takes everything they've got, and even then, the scars don't always heal. Shirley Grisby, longtime girlfriend of Boston Lobster Stephen the Rifleman Flemmi. Grisby was with him for nearly 10 years, a period marked by fear, jealousy, and control. She finally escaped by boarding a plane and disappearing. her decision to leave may have saved her life. Two of Flemmy's other girlfriends weren't as lucky, and both were murdered. Grisby now lives with the trauma, having entered witness protection to stay safe, knowing how close she came through a fatal ending. Surviving isn't just about walking away, it's about staying alive long enough to tell the story. The transformation. One of the most disturbing truths is how seemingly ordinary women get pulled into darkness. It doesn't happen overnight. Look at Karla Homolka, once a typical teenager. By the end, she was helping her boyfriend Paul Bernardo drug, assault, and murder young girls, including her own sister. One expert noted she ceded authority over her life to him. It wasn't instant. The same happened with Myra Hindley, who became one half of Britain's infamous Moors murders, and with Charles Manson's followers, many of whom started out as lost teens or housewives and ended up committing unspeakable crimes. Even in everyday gangs, women have been known to carry guns, scout targets, or run drugs, often just helping their partner at first. But love, especially when twisted with fear or control, can turn into something far darker. By the time they realize what they've become, it's often too late. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Is hybristophilia just a misunderstood psychology or an excuse for deadly obsession? Thanks for watching. Until the next chapter in the Outlaw book.